All right, so I just want to have a little talk about like YouTube tutorials and like my channel and how I kind of feel like a fraud sometimes because I'm like teaching you how to use the MERN stack, but in all honesty, I've never used MongoDB in production, so I don't know if MongoDB is even a good solution. So I kind of feel like a fraud that I'm sitting here teaching MERN stack tutorials when I don't know if Mongo is even good, to be honest. I don't know if Mongo Atlas is a good web service to use. I think it's cool to teach because it helps people learn how a database works, but I haven't done anything extravagant with Mongo. I mean, most of the times, like if I'm using stuff in React, like zustand or Redux, I've never used those in production. We use something called Cerebral.js in our project, which takes care of all the state management for us. So it's like I'm teaching you these tools mainly because like these are the hot keywords that YouTube wants me to, these are the keywords that people come to view, right? These get me the views. If I actually hit on Redux, I get more views. And if I did Cerebral, like what the heck is this? No one knows what this is. No one would actually want to watch a tutorial video about this, even though this actually is like a better way to do your state management, in my opinion. And then even Next.js, like I have never deployed a Next.js application to production that's being used by real users. So for me to sit here to make Next.js tutorials and kind of talk about Next.js and say, oh, Next.js is really cool, I don't know. I honestly don't know if this is even a good piece of technology because honestly, for most of these tooling, you don't know if they're good until you have users hitting them, right? Until you reach a certain point where like you have to iterate on these pieces of technology, refactor them, get them deployed, and you start noticing all these like little edge cases that start failing or don't work because you chose this piece of technology, right? Like I'm just kind of going off of the hype that other people have. Like people say Next.js is cool, so I start using it. Same with like Tailwind. I have never used Tailwind in production. I don't know how it actually is using Tailwind on a large scale system with 10 other developers. Like, does this scale or does this become like a nightmare to create some type of component system? I don't really know. All I do is I go off of like blog posts I read and I go off like the trends. I'm hoping that people flock toward these technologies because they're fun to work with and they're actually good solutions. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like I don't know how this stuff actually works on a real system. And then a lot of stuff that you read online, like there's context with everything. Every piece of technology has some context behind it. There might be one person who is working as a solo developer building out applications or websites for like small clients, and they use Tailwind and they say, oh, this is the best library they've ever used. That experience does not translate to another project that maybe has 10 or 20 developers all needing to commit to the same code base with a large scale repository, right? So depending on your project and the scale of your project and the size of your team and the experience of your team, some of these tools may or may not actually work well. So I guess I just want to make a little video just to kind of like put an emphasis on that fact that I don't know if these tools are actually good. I use these for my side projects. They're fun to play with, they're fun to learn, they're fun to make tutorials about, but I can't actually tell you with like certainty that these are actually good solutions. Like I've read a bunch of stuff about MongoDB being like a bad solution. Like if you go to Hacker News and like read about Mongo, there's people who hate on this solution. They say it's really hard to like manage your clusters will crash because everything's in memory. But it's like, I don't really know. Like, I don't even use this on my work project. I use something called DynamoDB. Like, I don't even use SQL or Mongo on my work project. I use something called DynamoDB, like, which is an Amazon solution for storing data, right? So it's like my experiences with what I'm doing in my day-to-day work, those are the things that I can actually only kind of give you real insight into if it's good or not for a real size project. But at the end of the day, it's like this stuff works for our project and it might not work for your project. So I guess as a beginner, if you're going around watching a bunch of videos, trying to know like what's the best stuff to learn, I think the best rule of thumb is try it out for yourself. And honestly, until you actually get put into a project that actually has like clients using this, you don't know if it's going to be a good piece of technology. That's the honest truth. And then sometimes you don't even know until like 2 years into the future or 2 years out that like, okay, we made a big mistake picking this piece of technology and now we have to like refactor everything or like migrate all of our data over to a different type of database, which happens sometimes in software, right? Sometimes you think you picked the best solution for your project and it turns out down the road that, maybe the data model that your project needs to follow or the size of your data set was miscalculated or misrepresented. And now instead of 1 million records, you actually need to store 1 billion records. So your database of choice is the wrong one, right? Maybe SQL won't work. Maybe you need a larger scale thing that'll handle all that data. Who knows? But I just wanted to have a little talk about that. Hopefully that kind of helped you learn something. I don't know if it did. Anyway, have a good day and have happy coding.